Hi there, I'm talking about a bunch of things today, mainly following on from repolarization. I mean, that clip will help you to understand this one, or at least parts of it. And also if you have centralized pain, that will be covered here, CPSP. And I'm talking about two oils and the synergy between them, because one is castor oil and the other is coconut oil. And there's a brilliant synergy between castor oil and coconut oil. Now, castor oil is 90% ricinoleic acid, okay? Which is a fatty acid. It's very thick. It is very thick stuff. And it's anti-inflammatory, an anti-inflammatory oil, but it cannot penetrate the skin easily because it is so thick. And the other oil is coconut oil that acts as a really good carrier for the castor oil. Now, why does it act as a good carrier? Because it's an MCT, a medium chain triglyceride, or as I keep thinking, medium chain troglodyte, but that's a bad joke. Triglyceride, it penetrates the skin because the primary fatty acids that it has have a shorter carbon chain, and that helps it to penetrate the skin barrier. So these two oils together have helped my nerve in a huge way, but I'm going to explain. Oh, and if you want, that's the end of the clip. You have this beautiful synergy between these two oils, and they work wonders for your hair, for your skin, and especially for nerves. But if you'd like to hear a little bit more, please keep following. So together these two oils have an excellent synergy, and they took the sting out of this nerve that I call Larry. I call Larry because in the film The Big Lebowski, Walter says to the dude, he says, "I think Larry was about to crack." And the dude says, "No, Walter, I don't think Larry was about to crack." And if you know the film, it's an iconic film. But my dorsomedial cutaneous nerve strikes every 3 days with a stabbing pain. And that's been happening for 3 years. That's why, hence the connection to centralized pain. Centralized meaning it's in the brain. But all pain is in the brain. But for those who have had a stroke, you might have come across central post-stroke pain a lot more. So yes, every 3 days, like clockwork, Larry strikes, which he did today. And it's a learned pain state, a learned state of pain, an alert that the body expects almost. And it was caused by a foot massager, because 3 years ago I was trying to accelerate or stimulate my nerves, and I used a foot massager, which obviously irritated the nerve, or it stimulated the nerve, but my nervous system couldn't process it locally, so it handed the message to the brain, and the brain turned it into something frightening, a pain that reoccurs every 3 days. So that's why I do lots of earthing to reset membrane potentials to a negative resting state of minus 70 millivolts. That's very important, because we were talking in the repolarized clip about a negative resting state, and the earth is negatively charged. And if your nerve cells are depolarized, they've lost this negative charge and start to go positive, they can fire off continuously. Hence, that pain lasts the whole day if I start off with it. Anyway, here's what ricinoleic acid does. It targets a nerve receptor called TRPV1. It's a pain receptor, and it detects heat and pain, and there are various receptors. But this ricinoleic acid engages the receptor without triggering pain because the ion channels remain closed. So ricinoleic acid is like a key that fits the lock, and it binds with the receptors, but it doesn't unlock that receptor and open the gates so that the sodium and calcium ions don't come flooding in to excite the nerve and keep firing action potentials. Remember, you might have to watch Repolarize, that clip, the previous clip I did. So what happens is the ion channels remain closed with ricinoleic acid, which is a castor oil, remember, and it wears out the nerve's ability to release inflammatory chemicals because it's binding to the nerve, but it's not opening the gates so that the rush of sodium and calcium does not happen, and therefore the nerves do not fire. Hence, 3 days ago when Larry struck, I had no pain for the first time in 3 years. I've come close with the earthing, but I put it on overnight, and in the morning I thought it's the usual, and it wasn't the usual. And today has been very successful as well, but today not only do I have the dorsomedial cutaneous nerve stimulated, but also the saphenous nerve that goes further up the leg. And so this morning I said to my wife, we forgot to cover the saphenous nerve last night. So she put oil there as well. And it really worked, I can tell. Now, capsaicin forces, capsaicin is what you find in red hot chili peppers. That's why they're hot. They're literally hot, and they sting, right? Now, they force the same receptor, TRPV1, they force the ion channels open. So sodium and calcium ions, they rush in, and they're driven by two things. One is a concentration, a lower concentration, so they go wherever there's a lower concentration, and then an electrical gradient, because if it's more negative, they literally want to get in, basically. And the red hot chili peppers, boom, open the gates, and they rush in, stimulate the nerve says, youch, and you get an electrical storm. That's what the pain is. These are electrical signals that are sent, and there is a phenomenon that happens, and it's called the paradox effect. So the paradox is that if you keep stimulating, it eventually goes numb. Paradoxically, the thing that is causing pain can also stop the pain, basically. So that's an overstimulation of the nerve. Now, I also used another oil. That's sandalwood oil, which I love. And I never knew that much about it other than the fact that it's really relaxing. And so I looked it up, and firstly I discovered it has a diuretic effect, and your waterworks really releases a lot of water. That was established during a 1927 study on rabbits. So that's the first thing that actually happened on Tuesday. And initially I didn't even think to look into the sandalwood oil, but there it was. And it also, because it woke me up during the night, it's a cardiotonic, a sandalwood oil. It slows your heart down, literally. Because in the night I woke up thinking, and I was a little startled, like, gosh, my heart's been going so slow, am I about to drop dead or something? But I just sat up and just sort of, what's going on, and went back to sleep, but it really slowed it down. So that's another well-documented effect of sandalwood oil. So we have 3 oils working well together in a synergy. Now, the whole problem that I have, if you have a nerve that hurts, then that's a local pain, that's fine. With me, you need to understand how my brain expects a certain pain and therefore it reoccurs. How does that happen? Now I want to talk about something called the body schema. Okay, now this is the brain's internal unconscious map of your body, and it constantly updates. Let's say it's the nervous system's, the map created by your nervous system, constantly updating. And it's not just a map of what the nervous system feels in space, but it's also in time. So it knows what's happening in space and time to your nervous system, and it knows therefore when my Larry is due to come. It prepares for it, it anticipates it. In fact, this is called anticipatory pain. And this happens when the brain learns a rhythm, such as my 3-day cyclic rhythm that keeps coming back. So it primes the neural pathways, this pain. The brain turns up the volume, listens, says, hey, I know something's going to happen today. It lowers the threshold of pain, that's so that it can pick it up because it's waiting for it, and it amplifies the incoming signals. So it becomes really sensitive to this pain. It knows this pain comes every 3 days and then disappears like nothing happened. So that's been happening for 3 years. Hence, that's why I say it's centralized pain. Now, 3.5 years ago, what happened? I had a catastrophic stroke, a really bad stroke, which left me deafferented. What does deafferentation means? It means I had half a nervous system and my affected side was basically offline. I couldn't feel any of it for at least a couple, 2, almost 3 years, and now I start to feel a little bit. And while it couldn't really feel things, it couldn't feel what happened locally, it would pass all that information up to the brain, and the brain would try and assess, is this what's happening here? And the brain didn't understand. It didn't have enough feedback to make good decisions. So I used this foot massager to stimulate my foot. My brain couldn't quite interpret the signal. It's like you hear a loud noise in the dark. Where did that come from? Well, what's, you know something's going on, but you can't pinpoint it. And you get this learned response, basically patterns. It's almost like a phantom pain, from phantom arms, phantom limbs. This is a pain that nothing's wrong with my foot, but the body schema is being updated, and it says, hey, I'm afraid this is central post-stroke pain. Now, with the ricinoleic acid binding to the TRP1 receptor, I've interrupted the cycle, because on Tuesday, thanks to that and earthing and all, I pulled out all the stops, I had no pain, and basically I interrupted this cycle at a chemical and electrical level. I sort of said, hey, hang on a minute, the sting, it didn't come today. for 3 years every 3 days, but not today. So that's telling my brain it's breaking an anticipated pain cycle. And the schema map updates. It says, hey, now things are changing maybe. This map updates all the time. It updates in space and it updates the time. It will say, this happens when I sense this, or our nervous system is ever so quick. We can not fool it. It's very good. So what I'm doing is, by breaking this cycle, I'm helping my brain I'm helping my brain relearn. It has to learn and rewire itself and its relationship with the sensation from my foot. So you might have heard of the homunculus. I don't know how to say it, it's a funny word. The cortical homunculus. Which is a static map. Okay, that's a static map. That's like hardware, basically. So the way that differs from the body schema is that the schema is software and homunculus is hardware, saying this bit of brain can feel the lips or the first 3 fingers. They all have been mapped out in our cortical, in the cortex of our brain. So it's like a static map. You put a map on the wall and you say, I've been to Greenland, I've been to Iceland, I've been to England, I've been to Scotland. But the schema is like a map that updates. So it's like a GPS saying, with a moving car or something, and it's changing all the time. It's got weather on there. And that's our nervous system, which has this kind of software version, if you like, of the map on the wall. And that software version can say, oh, today you can't feel Iceland. That would be your foot, because you've got Larry has come. So your software map is saying that's out of bounds. And I presume that's because if you had a pain, let's say all the time, that was in your brain, you would want to eliminate that pain. So that would disappear from your map, that pain. Because you don't want to be in agony all the time. So that's the homunculus as opposed to the schema. That's a difference. It's hardware and software. And my homunculus says that Larry is still there. Of course it does, because the actual hardware is still there. But my body schema is telling me, and slowly learning, that Larry might not crack today, but Larry's starting to crack. You must watch The Big Lebowski, because it's an absolute riot. Larry Sellers, Arthur Digby Sellers, is the author, his father. They go to his house because they discover his homework in the dude's car. And they think maybe he knows where the briefcase is. So they go to his house and try to make Larry crack. But they can't make Larry crack. And I've been trying to 3 years. I've not been able to make Larry crack. And anyway, ricinoleic oil, it binds to receptors, but with the doors closed, they don't flood. They don't let the ion channels in. So in the last, I just want to say one last thing about the clip on repolarization, because I didn't really explain that. I talked about action potentials when they reach a threshold and the voltage goes up and they fire, and that's happening too here, or not if we take ricinoleic oil. But I didn't explain that the sodium-potassium pump is really sort of recharging, because 3 sodium ions go out, 2 potassium comes in, and we increase the negative charge. It becomes more and more negative, and you can fire off more signals. Now, in practice, you can keep on firing signals, because that recharging of the sodium-potassium pump is not going to run out. It is adequately charged. So they're almost opposites. The polarizing action potentials when they're polarized, firing off, and then the pump recharges, because it's always losing sodium. Sodium is basically everywhere. Sodium leaks in through salt, and salt leaks out. Sodium leaks out of the cells, and here it is, the sodium potassium pump is actually transporting the sodium out and transporting potassium, which is so dear to us. Otherwise all our sodium potassium pumps could not function without potassium, and we have a 2-to-1 potassium to sodium ratio. So the other thing that comes to mind, which is pretty brilliant if you ask me, is celery. We made a clip on celery, and the ratio of potassium to sodium in celery is, I believe, 3.25 potassium to 1 of sodium, which is a stronger ratio than we have in our bodies, 2-to-1 potassium to sodium. So celery is brilliant for us, absolutely brilliant. It's going to make our sodium potassium pumps work very well, which we really need after a stroke. So we've covered everything to do with appeasing a nerve, trying to re-educate the body and retrain it not to expect the expected, which, by the way, we rely on being able to anticipate and routine and understand our surroundings and everything. But here, we definitely want to get rid of these centralized habits and learned pain states that become a reality. So we have a role to play in re-educating our brain since we've had a stroke. We must do something. We can't just pop pills all day. We might have to for some reason, but I believe in finding solutions, and I hope this solution helps somebody, because castor oil and the coconut oil that helps to deliver the castor oil to that receptor is a brilliant synergy, a brilliant combo, and I wish everyone much success with it. It's not going to solve every problem that's a centralized problem, but it's solved it for me. I haven't solved it, and today Larry did come, but it was completely different today, because we put the ricinoleic, we put the castor oil last night, left it on overnight so it sinks in with the coconut oil, and my wife helped me with that, and put it on again this morning. It's been quite different. But again, this is not going to be an immediate shutdown of a pattern that I've learned over 3 years. It's going to be a stepping down, and me saying, well, not necessarily will that pain come tomorrow, which is day 3. I call this actually day 3. Tomorrow's day 4. I'll be able to do a great walk. Today, no. Today's my worst day of the week at the moment. Anyway, that is one problem that I feel I'm on top of, and I would be delighted if this helps other stroke survivors, warriors, and whoever you are. So keep working, and remember that every day is different. You may think you know what's coming, but there might be a nice surprise around the corner, a pleasant surprise if you give it the chance to happen. You can change your life and discover new things, and you can note very subtle changes. I put them in my journal, and when I note a change, I say, ah ha ha ha. I feel, you know, I'm like homing in on something there. God be with you. Have fun.